Love lives here.
Good morning, everyone. And you've heard my name several times, but I'm going to repeat it anyway. My name is Reverend Dr. Victoria Bomberry, and I'm the Minister of Transformation here at Riverside Center for Spiritual Living. It's so good to be with you here today. And, I love seeing the names of people rolling across the screen. It makes me feel connected to you and a part of this beautiful church family, this beautiful center family that we call our home. And I just want to say that I saw Amber come up and Constance and Allison and I can't remember all of the names, but each time a name rolled by, and here's Tommy Jackson, wonderful. Each time a name rolls by, it just lights up my heart, and it just gives me that boost of energy knowing that we're all here together. And it's so wonderful to be in this place, this beautiful place that we have made our home in Riverside. And I want to recognize this month as Native American Heritage Month. And I want to honor the Kauai people as the first people of Riverside. And, they are here. The Kauai people are here. It's not something that is of the past. It's very present. And that presence is felt in ways that sometimes we don't pick up. But this month and the rest of the year and all times, I want to invite you to just be aware of that presence, that Indigenous presence that is here in Riverside. And I want to give a little bit of historical background about Native American Heritage Month. One of the first proponents of American Indian Day was Dr. Arthur C. Parker, and he was a Seneca from New York. And he is, one of the scholars at the turn of the century who was trained, had formal education, and became, a PhD in his field. And he was the director of the Museum of Arts and Sciences in Rochester, New York. And he persuaded the Boy Scouts of America to set aside a day for the first Americans right around the turn of the century, 19th century to 20th century. And for 3 years, they adopted such a day. In 1915, the Congress of American Indian Association, meeting in Lawrence, Kansas, formally approved a plan concerning American Indian Day. So they were thinking, we just need a day, right? We need a day of recognition. And that was the opening, right? That was an opening. And that body of people directed its president, Reverend Sherman Coolidge, who was Arapaho, to call upon the country to observe such a day. Coolidge issued a proclamation on September 28, 1915, which declared the second Saturday of each May as an American Indian Day and contained the first formal appeal for recognition of Native people as citizens of the United States. And if you want to ask me about that whole process sometime, call me or we'll talk more about it, because it's been a long process of having recognition as citizens. In 1990, President George H. Bush approved a joint resolution designating November 1990 National American Indian Heritage Month. Similar proclamations under variants of that name, including Native American Heritage Month and National American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month, have been issued every year since 1994. And many states now have declared October 12th Indigenous Peoples Day. Other states have different official days to honor Indigenous peoples. And invisibility is one of the strongest expressions of racism that Indigenous people face. So all of these things are really positive things that are transforming the way that we are able to see everyone, recognize and honor everyone. And, having that mindset of erasure of Indigenous peoples is continuing the process of eradication. And as I said, all of these things are adding up to healing that past and the present. The project of remembering and seeing is a part of waking up to a new way of being in the world that understands all the oneness of all people and all of life. I trust that the inclusion and diversity process that we are engaged in will lead us to the recognition of Indigenous peoples every day. We are awakening to a new day where we have peace inside our hearts that allows us to see the world as it was created. We can call it Eden, we can call it Shambhala, we can call it heaven on earth, but whatever we call it, it's the spiritual reality of this material world in which we live. This month, Reverend Jeffrey has been focusing on the book, The Government of Eden, and I am continuing exploring this wonderful book by Joel Goldsmith today. The title of my talk is The Peace of Eden Now. And that's with an exclamation point. And I just want to say that the peace of Eden now. Joel Goldsmith describes Eden as eternality, immortality, infinity, harmony, completeness, and perfection. What we as religious scientists recognize as God qualities. We know that when we recognize living spirit and unite with it, we experience the fullness of life, peace, and joy, no matter what the circumstances may be. We can live in the eternal now. It is all of the wisdom, it's what all of the wisdom teachings point towards. If we really look at everything, this is what it points toward, that we can have this peace. It's ours. It resides in the center of our being. The global vision of Centers for Spiritual Living states, we envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family. Just think about that. I'm going to talk about family today, but global family. We have our center family here, and I've seen people put up on the screen, I love my church family, and and we love this. And this is what we envision at Centers for Spiritual Living, that we respect and honor the interconnectedness of all life, a world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. Our philosophy is practical with commitment to our own inner work and engagement with the world. We're not cloistering. Wow, can I say that word? Isolating ourselves. That's easier. Isolating ourselves from the rest of the world. We are fully engaged in all of the activities of the world, but with a different consciousness. That's what we are cultivating, a different consciousness, a new way of being. And we have accepted the challenge to live as householders. And, we're not separate. We're not living on top of mountains. We've all decided to live as householders with all of the responsibilities and opportunities to become skilled in life and all its accompanying transitions. And, the Buddhists always remind us, build those skills, learn to be skillful in living, learn to be skillful through all of those transitions. And that's what we are engaged in right now. Entering the holidays during a pandemic is giving us a chance to practice the wisdom teachings that we study. We have a lot going on, and we may be dealing with difficult emotions. And yet I know that we can have the peace of Eden now. I know that. I know that in every fiber of my body. I know that. Um, and yet, we are in these difficult situations often. We have a pandemic that none of us have experienced on this in our lifetime. Back in the early part of the 20th century, there was a pandemic that was a dreadful pandemic, the Spanish flu, right? And that decimated the population. And of course, there wasn't the same kinds of responses available at that time as there are now. And still, with all that we know and all that the knowledge that we've gleaned over this past 100 years, we are still struggling with this pandemic. And that doesn't mean that things aren't happening, that things aren't moving forward, that we aren't responding in a way that will bring us back to that optimal health that we all need and know. And oftentimes, this whole idea of the pandemic, it's causing a lot of things in families. We're not able to see one another, or when we get together, it may be a little bit uncomfortable because we're having to establish guidelines for how we gather. Here at our center, we've decided that we'll meet on Zoom, and we're not having gatherings in person. And yet we have to have these agreements that we make with one another, and we have to keep our agreements. So we have a structure around us that will help us move through all of this. Now, when we focus on the family, I'm always reminded about what Mother Teresa said. And Mother Teresa says, if you want to bring happiness to the world, go home and love your family. And, families come in all shapes and sizes and all kinds of different configurations. And it's family, whether they're a birth family or a family of choice. And that's where we get to do our work. This is the highest spiritual practice of the householder, is to love our family. It is right there where we understand who we are and learn to have compassion for ourselves and for those we are closest to. And even when we may be separated from our families for whatever reason it might be, it might be an estrangement, it may be that we need to live apart for a while, whatever, or it's just the pandemic where we are taking precautions. We are still learning about how we have peace in our families. That's a learning ground. And if we are have those raw moments dealing with families, we also know that we have this beautiful center where we can come and renew ourselves and find solace and sanctuary in that renewal. Now, there's dozens of movies made about families during the holidays, and we watch them because they give us a glimpse of ourselves and the things that we do with and to one another that are all part of learning skills that help us perfect our love. And isn't that what we're here to do? We're here to perfect our love. And I love that we talk about love here all the time, and we practice it here at Riverside Center for Spiritual Living. And I've been watching a lot of movies since the pandemic, since we've had children in grace. And I've watched a lot of movies, and right now I'm watching holiday movies. And what I enjoy about these movies is that there is always something that I can relate to about myself or the situations that my own family has had at some point. Maybe not all, but a lot of them are very common. That's why we resonate with them, and we feel with them, and we cry with them, and we laugh with them. We go through all that emotional terrain through these movies because we recognize what's going on. What I notice about all of these movies is that what is playing out is not really about the particular situation that's happening right then. Yeah, there might be some sort of spark, right? Or, we say trigger now, but, there might be a spark there that ignites a whole cascade of events that wreak havoc within a family. So what's getting played out are old patterns, old habits, individual expectations of others, and assumptions, right? They get played out about, and we have assumptions about and expectations about other people's behavior. And it's all stuck up here, right? It's stuck in our heads. And our job always is to move from this thought, those thoughts, down into our heart. And in these movies, right, in real life, there is so much that is not being spoken in words. Oftentimes people aren't speaking in words, and when they do, there are these outbursts, right, of oftentimes hurtful things. But there's a lot going on under the surface that aren't spoken. And the only ways that the protagonists react to one another is badly, right? They're just doing all these things. Maybe they're having an outburst. Maybe they're reacting, storming out of the house. Maybe they're getting into physical altercations with people. Just all manner of things happen, in the movies and in real life, right? When we're with family. And when the crisis comes to the head, right? The crisis comes to a head, and the protagonists are able to articulate their true wants and desires. Otherwise, we're just seeing all the storm. We're seeing the storm. We're seeing the chaos that is occurring until that articulation of true wants and desires. And, generally it is as simple as wanting to be seen and heard and loved for who they are, right? That's the cry. That's the cry that we always have, whether we're dealing with families or whether we're dealing with our communities or whether we're dealing with the world at large. That's the cry. And it doesn't matter whether the protagonists are able to get it from the family at the moment, but the clarity is the transformational element. Clarity, transformation, right? We are reminded on all of these occasions when we're watching them or whether we're experiencing them in real life that it is an opportunity to learn how we react. And oftentimes when we get in trouble, we're in reactive mode. I know for myself, that's where I really get in trouble, is when I'm really just in reactive mode. Something sets me off and then I'm just gone, and it may take a while to come back, right? To come back to myself, to come back to that highest self. And when that happens, what do we do? Or what do I do? I try to breathe and kind of think things through, reflect, and get back to that center. And that center, that moment of clarity, I would call that the God moment. God is always there, but in the heat of family discord or disharmony, we close ourselves off from it. So we do have to step back. We do have to enter that silence. And the silence doesn't have to last for very long. It can be a nanosecond to get to that moment of silence and to have an epiphany. Goldsmith says, nothing can establish permanent peace in the heart of an individual except for the entrance into the heart of the Christ, the Spirit of God, as peace is established in the world. A peace that comes not by the knowledge of human beings, nor the wisdom or power of humanity, but by the Spirit of God functioning as the consciousness of humanity. And let's just pause with that. The Spirit of God functioning as the consciousness of humanity. And that's when we get from all of that rumination in our head and make that journey to the heart, to clarity. And clarity is allowing light to flow in to our whole being, to illuminate whatever situation we may be in. We can never lose sight of the reality that we love one another. When things go off the rails, we forgive one another and realize that things that go wrong are transitory. They really are. They happen at that moment. They are transitory. They are not set in stone unless we harden our hearts. And we have a choice there. We can allow them to harden our hearts. And we know that all of our spiritual practices are about softening our hearts. That's what we do. We soften our hearts. We allow the light to shine through. And we also know that those things that pierce us to the heart allow that light to shine in, and they allow the light to shine out if we allow it. So we allow those piercings to be opportunities for us to become that light that we are, that we truly are. For the past, almost 4 years now, I've been leading a peace group. And, our practice is metta. And, I've been just so amazed at the commitment of this group of individuals to be practicing peace. And we meet once a week without fail. And we practice a metta meditation. And we've seen some incredible transformations take place in our own lives and in the world as this group that holds peace for ourselves and for everyone. That's our commitment, to do that and to hold that peace. I'm going to teach this practice. A lot of you probably already know it. And I'm just going to remind us that, when we get into those situations in the holidays, and there's going to be all kinds of situations, right, that come up, because generally the holidays can be a little bit stressful. And this year, it's a little bit different because the stressors are, not being able oftentimes to get together with our family in the ways that we're accustomed to. And, that offers other opportunities, and it offers us opportunities to build our skill level in resilience, right? And to come to that place where we really want to be those beacons of light and peace. So metta is a practice that always starts with ourselves. And a lot of people have a difficult time sending love to themselves, and it takes practice, because of, all those things I talked about earlier, past patterns, things that have been inserted in us through some events, things that we haven't been able to process, all of that, right, is there, and yet we do these spiritual practices so that we uh, fill up with something other than that, and we open our hearts to life and to life as it is, without assumptions and without expectations from anyone's behavior. We think about who we are, and we allow that to come forward. So we start with ourselves, and we send loving kindness to ourselves. That is also called the loving kindness meditation. And I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes and get comfortable right where you are. If you want, you can leave your eyes open. And if you do, just have a soft gaze. And you can use different kinds of statements in metta. I generally use ones that I learned from Jack Cornfield. And we begin with ourselves. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be free from inner and outer danger. May I be well in mind and body. May I be at peace and happy. And let's breathe and just allow that to flow through us. And feel your heart opening. Feel as if you're breathing directly from your heart. And then we move to someone that we just love unconditionally. And if you can't think of anyone, you may think about a beloved companion animal. You may think about a beloved teacher. You may think about someone that you met that just struck you as that God person that opened your heart. And let's send loving kindness to them. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be free from inner and outer danger. May you be well in mind and body. May you be at peace and happy. And then we move out, and we may think about people who we are having difficulties with. And the whole thing here is not to try to change anyone, not to try to fix anyone. This is all about softening our own hearts. When we are sending loving kindness authentically to those who we may be having difficulties with. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be free from inner and outer danger. May you be well in mind and body. May you be at peace and happy. And let's just breathe that. And I think that as we do this practice, I know that as we do this practice, there is that opening that takes place. And if you don't feel it immediately, it's okay. Just continue the practice until you do feel it. And, I've been doing this for, getting close to like 25 years. And, I've seen the quality of my life shift dramatically, and I might not have noticed it at the beginning very much, but it's cumulative, right? It's putting that, making those deposits into our spiritual bank account, right? We're doing that, and it's transforming us, and it's softening us, softening that heart. And that's what we aim to do. Now, Goldsmith says, as the realization of our dominion dawns in thought, More assurance, confidence, and certainty comes evident. We become a new being, and the world reflects back to us our own higher attitude toward it. Gradually, an understanding of other human beings and their problems unfolds to us from within, and more love flows out from us. More tolerance, cooperativeness, helpfulness, compassion, and we find the world responds to our new concept of it. And then all the universes rushes to pour its riches and treasures into our lap. Wow, isn't that amazing? Through our spiritual practice, as we have these realizations, we are open to all the riches and treasures of the universe. And as we are filled, we are able to give that to the world. And it's just that reciprocal relationship that continues. And I know that we can have the peace of Eden now. I want to live there. I want to be that. And I know that it is a certainty when I open myself to God. It doesn't matter how many times I fall. I know that God is there and that I have the spiritual fortitude to meet each challenge. I may be awkward. Really, I may be awkward as I take these steps, right? I take a new step in a different direction that I've never been before. Maybe a situation arises that I've never dealt with. And all at once, I'm awkward and I stumble and I fall and I make mistakes. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that we get up and we try again, and we allow in that process for our hearts to be soft. And we allow the joy and wonder of every moment to pour in. I become a new being who can stand for peace, cooperation, helpfulness, and compassion. I am the light of peace. And that is truly who we are. We are those lights of peace. And I see it every day in this community. I see people who are just beaming with light, who have enormous capabilities for living in a way that transforms everything around them. So as we move into this week, know that you are the light of the world. You are peace. And let's turn within. Oh, I'm so grateful to recognize God in this very moment, that all in all, the peace that is always within, that loving kindness that permeates all of our existence. If we only wake up to it, if we only open our eyes to it, it is always there. And I know that as each and every person today moves into this holiday season, they are open to all of life. They accept each and every opportunity to be the light, to stand for peace, to be that helpful person in someone else's life, to get out of those petty things, those petty hurts, those petty slights, those things that just get in the way of love and light. And when the large things come, I know that that spiritual fortitude rushes forth to uplift and to support whatever needs to occur in that moment, whether it's reaching out for help, whether it is going within. We know what to do because we are clear. We are those divine emanations of light. And I am so grateful for all of this. I'm grateful for this community. I'm grateful for the love that lives here. I'm grateful for the peace that is. I'm grateful for all of this. And I am blessing us as we move into this holiday season with an openness that we have never, ever experienced before, and a tolerance for all of those things that just happen, those little irritations, and that everything comes forward. We speak our words with care and with conviction, and our words are peace. And I let this be, and so it is. Amen.
Love